Good evening, dear listener, wherever you are. Perhaps curled beneath a blanket or nestled beside the hush of a humming fan, know that you are welcome here. Night has fallen gently as it always does, brushing the world in quiet shades of smoke and silver. What hour is it for you, I wonder? Midnight, earlier? Or perhaps the sun has long since gone to rest, and you've joined it now in stillness. Into a smaller world, darker, colder, edged in ash and wind. If you enjoy drifting through history's quieter corners, feel free to subscribe so you can return whenever your thoughts need softening. Now let's step quietly backward, past the centuries, past the steam and light of modern life. Her hands are stained with elderberry tincture and years of quiet deaths. Instead, someone offers her a cup of warm beer safer than water. Always in begins the swaddling. You're wrapped tight as a bread loaf, arms bound to your sides, legs locked straight, as though movement might invite mischief. Outside, a dog barks once. But inside, the fire crackles, and in the shadows, a cat watches from a beam above the hearth, eyes glowing gold like distant lanterns. It stares at you for a long time. They say sometimes cats smother babies by lying too close. No one says it now, but everyone thinks it. Others point to letters, to funeral verses, to scraps of cloth tucked in rafters, even when death stood due close. Perhaps both are true. Perhaps it depends on the day, the child, the chill in the air. The birth itself is quick, silent. There is no screaming. No one has the strength for that. Outside, the wind taps at the shutter with a cold knuckle. You share the room with your parents, 3 siblings, a goat with a limp, and 2 chickens who wander freely, scratching in the straw for invisible treasure. There's no chimney, just a hole in the thatch above, where the smoke limps out if the wind is kind. Most nights it isn't. The air is always a little heavy, like breath held too long. Every winter cough is a quiet drumbeat of worry. And still, life hums around you. Your mother sings to the saints as she boils nettles for soup. Your father mutters at his cracked boots, hoping to make them last another season. The world outside the cottage brims with kings and laws, but here, life is counted in porridge and firewood and hours without a wheeze. Just gasps, a low groan, and the wet slap of a new life sliding into the shadows. Not because your family is devout, but because the risk of dying unbaptized is unthinkable. Purgatory yawns wide for those unnamed by the church. The basin is cold and chipped, filled with reused water that's already touched 10 other babies this week. The priest is ancient, half-blind, and muttering in Latin that no one understands. But he says your name. He makes the sign of the cross. And for the first time, you are written down. A line in the parish book, sole, at least on paper. You are purple at first, curled and silent. A hesitant creature, like a root pulled too early from the soil. The midwife flicks your foot, mutters God's breath and waits, at last a cry. Then, wavering but enough, you've announced yourself. It is the year 1534, and you are about to be born. Your mother, pale and slick with sweat, takes you without ceremony. She's lost others before you, to fever, to winter, to whatever humors, they say, brew inside small bodies. She holds you not like a miracle, but like a wager she hopes to win. You arrive in the night, not in a room filled with warmth and white linens, but on a pile of old cloths beside a peat-burning hearth. The air inside this cottage is a slow stew of smoke, wet wool, mildew, and something acrid that might be goat or unwashed feet. It's hard to tell. The walls are wooden, but packed with wattle and daub, patched with rags and prayers, and they sweat with damp from the last storm. The rushes covering the floor are more decorative than clean, soaked through with drips, droppings, and time. And here, in a corner no grander than a cupboard, your mother strains to bring you into the world. The midwife leans low, muttering what might be a spell or a psalm. The straw mattress nearby shifts as your father turns away, not out of indifference, but because the moment is too sharp to watch. There's no bath, no inspection, no gentle cooing. Your cradle is a box near the fire, lined with wool and flabane. Already the space is crowded. A few days later, you are taken still wrinkled and suspicious of light to the church for baptism. Still, you're not out of danger, not even close. Half of all children in Tudor England won't live past the age of 5. The numbers aren't whispered, they're expected. Every teething fever is a threat. Historians still wonder, how deeply did parents love their babies, knowing they might vanish before spring? Some argue that grief was reserved, hidden behind labor and chores, kept distant until a child grew strong enough to speak. For now, your mother tucks you into the cradle and stirs the fire. Your breath comes soft and regular. Out your sister sneezes in her sleep. And inside, in this cramped, soot-dark room, something holds. It's a fragile balance. A borrowed peace. The lantern's glow softens into the dark. The fire has burned low, but its scent lingers. Peat smoke woven with damp wool and something faintly sweet like dried chamomile, crushed underfoot. The air inside the cottage hasn't moved much in days, curling itself into corners, gathering in the beams like an invisible guest. You cannot move your arms. You wouldn't dare even if you could. Swaddling is snug, pinning you from shoulder to ankle. It's said to prevent crooked limbs, wayward spirits, and bad behavior in that order. Your father coughs once, a sound too deep and too wet to ignore. He hasn't cried since he was a boy, probably, but something left him that morning and hasn't come back. He only speaks to curse the fields or argue with the goat. Even that has grown rare. Your siblings remember Joan in bits, her song about geese, her way of stomping when she didn't get her way. You don't remember her at all, not really. Only that she isn't here. Her place by the hearth is empty, but the cat still sleeps there. He wipes his mouth with the back of his hand and stares at the fire as though it's hiding answers. But you've seen the man in robes come to the door, smell of must and ink and vinegar. He places his hand on your head, says something in Latin. Your mother nods, then offers him the last of the stew. He declines. Later, she mutters that he smells like dead paper. Better than the grave, your father says, with the faintest flicker of his old voice. No one laughs. There's a dark ring under his eyes and something darker in his silence. The sharp creak of the cottage door means wind or worry, usually both. Loose limbs meant loose spirits, or so they claimed. A still body was a pure one. In some towns, infants were wrapped so tightly they couldn't move for months. It's debated now whether this was care or control, wisdom or fear. Some historians believe it comforted the baby, replicating the Walm's embrace. Others point to tales of dislocated shoulders and flattened skulls. Neither side agrees. The babies never left records. You can't lift your head, but you can smell. And what a world of smells this is. You feel the cool press of night against your cheek when the shutter slips open. You listen to coughs the way others listen for bells, noting the pitch, the wetness, the way it drags at the end. Your life so far is a study in survival without language. You breathe, you eat, you twitch. You do not scream. Screaming costs too much. Boiled nettle, goat droppings, wet wool, sour milk, mildew in the rushes, smoke that clings to every surface like second skin. It's said you can smell death if you know what to look for. Here, you're never sure whether the scent is gone or just hiding. He hasn't spoken much since last spring, since your sister Joan coughed through the thaw and never stopped. They were largely left to survive or fail quietly. Crying might bring attention, but not necessarily comfort. If you cry too often, someone might whisper you're fate-hutched or ill-favored. You've already learned to squirm silently. She's too busy scraping green mold off a loaf of barley bread with the tip of a knife. She whispers something as she does it, maybe a blessing, maybe just a curse disguised as thanks. She wipes the knife on her apron and tucks a piece into her mouth, before giving the rest to the others. You won't taste bread for months, maybe longer. Your meals are mother's milk, sweet and sour by turns, filtered through fear and fatigue. Sometimes, when you latch on, your mother winces. Her shoulders sagged, but she lets you feed. Her body still remembers how, even when the rest of her forgets sleep. The cat still watches from the rafters. Its tail flicks when you cough. There's a story older than scripture about a baby whose toes were chewed off during the night. No one remembers the child's name, but everyone remembers the lesson. She was wrapped in linens, the same ones that once held you, and buried in the churchyard with only a handful of words. No procession. No grave marker. It's just a spade and a silence that hasn't left since. Your body's a bundle. Your world just four walls of scratchy cloth and the crackling hiss of damp firewood. Your toes itch, but there's no chance of scratching. Straw beneath you rustles whenever someone walks past. Dust floats in slivers of light. Above you, a spider dangles from a crooked beam, drifting slightly every time someone breathes. Beyond the shuttered window, late autumn drapes the village in quiet fog. But inside, everything is crowded and loud in small ways. A cluck from a restless hen, the wheeze of your sister's breath, the scrape of your mother's spoon against a pot that's nearly empty. You lie motionless in your cradle, tightly swaddled, as though the linen itself could hold your bones together. No one watches you closely. Babies are fragile and common, easily made, often lost. Your siblings, each a little older, pay you no mind. One picks at a scab, another rolls a stone back and forth across the hearth. But your mother, bond-tired, kneels near the pot, boiling nettles again, this time for your father's foot, which has turned purple and angry-smelling. She adds a strip of bark and mutters a name, not a saint's. You recognize that tone already, though you can't speak. A hush of desperation, thick as honey. She winces when she stirs. Her knuckles are cracked, skin chapped like broken leather, but she doesn't stop. What weight does love carry when time threatens to steal it? There is a memory being made right now, though no one knows it yet. They say children die quietly. Their passing is like a candle's final flicker. But your mother sobbed until she bled. Your father didn't cry. The hearth knows every sorrow, yet never speaks of them. By your second month, you've learned the rhythm of the room. The clatter of the spoon means food. The hiss of the kettle means someone is sick. In Tudor England, children weren't coddled as they are now. Why do we remember warnings longer than we remember names? Somewhere outside, a cart rolls past, the wooden wheels groaning like old bones. Your mother doesn't look up. You don't know what a priest is yet. The stew cools beside the fire, untouched and gray. A historical fact, in the 16th century, swaddling was believed not only to protect the baby's limbs, but to prevent moral corruption. You feel heat when someone sits too close. What stillness lives inside memory? At sunset, the rafters above the hearth catch gold for a moment. Not true gold, of course, just the fading kiss of light on old beams. The warmth doesn't reach the floor. Below, in the shallow cradle of straw and timber, your small body lies swaddled, motionless but alert. You've learned how to wobble barefoot across the rushes, your toes sinking into damp straw-stained layers, as familiar as skin. The world beneath your feet is uneven. Sometimes sticky, sometimes icy, sometimes crumbling like old parchment. Your hands grasp table legs, your balance unsure. You fall often. Once into a puddle of something fermented and forgotten. Once near the hearth, where the heat snapped at your fingers like a mother losing patience. Still, you move, pulled forward not by desire, but by instinct. The slow blooming of motion in a body made cautious by hunger. Sometimes it worked. More often, it delayed the inevitable. If the coughing started, the deep rattling kind that echoed like a hollow drum, people quietly stopped visiting. And if the cottage door remained shut too long, someone came to burn the bedding. That, more than anything, told you the person inside was gone. A beam of dusky light slants across the wall, illuminating soot patterns and spider threads that look like ancient runes. A cup remains clean too long. A bowl is not licked dry. The fire burns low with no one to feed it. One of your sisters thinks it's a curse, that it limped after crossing the grave path near the old churchyard. Rain seeps through the thatch like doubt, slow and insistent. At night, your breath fogs in the room, curling around the rafters like smoke that forgot its way out. You now sleep beside your siblings, crammed into a bed that is little more than a box of straw and cloth scraps. Everyone shifts in the night. One kicks, one snores, one mumbles about a dream with teeth. You've learned that grown-ups move away when someone starts coughing too much. You've seen the priest walk by without stopping. You've seen the smoke rise from the small shed at the far edge of the fields. Bedding, they say. Cleansing, they say. Everyone knows what it means. You find your place by touch, your hands memorizing warmth as a map. No one laughs at her. Superstition is not dismissed here. It's cataloged. Your mother tucks a hot stone near the blanket edge. Doesn't reach your feet, but you pretend it does. The causes were many: measles, fevers, rot, bad air. But the truth was simpler. Bodies were small, and the world was large. Children vanished before they had time to matter to anyone outside their own walls. He says little, just takes off his boots and stares at the wall. Your mother presses a mug of ale into his hands. He drinks without looking at her. The next morning he coughs. Once, then again. Slower. Your mother turns away quickly and begins boiling something pungent. A broth that smells of onion, ash, and hope. You're not sure which scent is strongest. Many graves were unmarked. Many names never written. But still, some families remembered. A carving, a cloth, a line in a prayer. The fire glows faint, a red eye in the dark, keeping watch with neither malice nor mercy. Somewhere above, a rat scampers across the rafters. The cat flicks its tail once, unimpressed. Catalogued and cross-stitched into every crack in the cottage, every herb hanging from the beams, every word muttered under breath. The smell changes too. Less of bodies, more of air. Cold, empty air that no longer belongs to anyone. The goat is restless again, shifting near the doorway, hooves ticking softly against the packed mud floor. Your brother coughs, a sharp bark that slices through the stillness. But you notice how your mother lowers her voice when she speaks of it, how your father frowns into his cup and rubs his forehead with the heel of his hand. There's an older woman at the edge of the village, Goody Harrow. People speak of her with a tilt of the head. Your mother calls her clever with roots. Your father says nothing. You've seen her once, wrapped in gray cloth, skin like bark, eyes like puddles before rain. She nodded at your mother and pressed something into her hand. A bundle of herbs, or maybe just dried leaves. You didn't ask. The children from the house next door have stopped playing. Some say their knowledge came from generations of careful observation. Others believe it was desperation cloaked in ritual. The line between healing and heresy was always thin. A successful salve might be praised. A failed one? Grounds for accusation? Their shoes remain by the door, unmoved for 3 days. At night. The firelight paints shadows that look like missing faces across the wall. He covers his mouth with a sleeve patched in 5 places. No one says a word. You are 18 months old. Your mother watches with one eye, the other on the pot over the fire. She hums a lullaby with no known words, only vowels shaped from breath and memory. On the floor near your feet, a crust of bread hard as stone. Your fingers close around it without thinking. It tastes of soot and dryness and something faintly sour. No one takes it from you. No one offers better. Hunger is not urgent anymore. It's simply background noise, like the wind against the roof. How many small hungers go unanswered simply because they are expected? A neighbor has fallen ill. You don't know her name. No one says the word aloud. Not yet. In Tudor villages, when illness struck, the afflicted were often removed from the home entirely, banished to separate cottages or sheds, places where the sick could die without spreading their fate. You don't understand death yet, but you recognize absence. Space once filled is now still. Grief rarely shouts. It whispers and waits. The goat has begun to limp more noticeably. Your father says it's nothing. Your mother disagrees. Even at this age, you understand that not everything spoken is meant for others to hear. Historians still argue about figures like Goody Harrow. Were they healers, witches, or simply women who remembered too much? Is wisdom less trusted when it wears a woman's face? The days grow colder. The sky shifts from soft golds to hard grays. The mattress rustles like dry reeds. Fleas hop with reckless joy across your arms. Someone groans in sleep, then falls silent. In the 1500s, nearly 60% of children in some regions of England died before reaching their 5th birthday. History hums, even when no one listens. You're older now, almost 2. Your steps are sturdier, your cries louder, but danger hasn't lessened. One night, your father returns late from the field, soaked and shivering. The broth simmers, the floor creaks, the storm scratches at the walls. Inside, the cottage holds its breath. What does fear taste like, if not bitter root in borrowed time? A young girl, no older than 6, crouches by the garden hedge with her fingers buried in the dirt. Her name is Alice, and she is not yours to know, not fully, but she passes your cottage often enough to feel familiar. Her hands are always stained, not with blood, not with sin, just earth, and something older than either. She hums to herself while picking nettle, whispering under her breath to the roots. Today she carries a pouch of red berries, the kind your mother warned against. She tucks them into her apron anyway. No one stops her. Everyone is too afraid. It's said Alice's grandmother was a wise woman, then bundled you against her chest and walked the long road toward Goody Harrow's hut, the crooked one with no windows and a door that groans in warning. Your mother doesn't ask questions. She knows better. She offers bread, a slice of cheese gone stiff at the edges. Others think they merely wore the mask of magic to survive the sharp edges of authority. History, like memory, does not always clarify.
Amen.
Or tribute. Either way, it's accepted. He watches the corner where the straw has turned dark from repeated leaks. The salve still clings to your skin, leaving a sticky sheen that smells like rosemary and lard. You drift in and out, one foot in dream, the other in fever. Not songs for joy, not lullabies, just verses that fall like rain against the straw roof. She sings of saints and seasons, and once, a verse in a tongue you didn't know. It hummed in your bones. At some point, the cat curls beside your cradle. It stays until morning. Others called it madness. There were also teas of yarrow, salves of lavender, and cloths soaked in vinegar or urine. The line between medicine and myth was slim, threadbare, and often based on what worked once. A cure that saved one child became gospel. One that failed became forgotten, or worse, blamed on the patient's soul. You've begun to walk farther, to follow your mother to the hedgerows, to dig in the damp soil for roots that might pass as food or medicine, or both. You gather twigs. You hold the pouch. You carry the smallest pot. It's for a death. Someone older, probably, or not. The bell doesn't distinguish. You help by existing, by not crying, by surviving. That is enough. More than enough, in a world where survival is not promised. The earth clings to your fingers, thick and cold, smelling of rot and something green. You don't ask what each plant is for. You simply watch. You learn that some leaves sting, some soothe, and some are never touched. Your mother doesn't explain. Her hands speak in gestures, a flick, a tuck, a press to the lips. Instructions without words. He's wrapped in his old coat, the one with a patch from your sister's apron sewn over the elbow. You don't know this yet? But later, much later, your mother will find it still there. Flattened and faded, but intact. She'll hold it for a long time before placing it in the fire. Lungs tight, eyes glassy. Your mother places the pouch beneath your mattress and sprinkles something into the hearth. The flames flare, greenish for a moment, then settle. Inside, it smells of crushed sage and something more pungent. Animal skin drying, perhaps. Goody Harrow touches your forehead with fingers like cold sticks. She doesn't speak right away. Instead, she reaches for a small pouch, ties it shut with twine, and places it near your feet. Some say a healer, others a witch, depending on whether she cured your uncle's boils or refused your cousin's fever. That's how it always goes. Reputation clings like damp wool, difficult to shake and heavier over time. Alice's mother died in childbirth. Her father drinks vinegar ale and speaks to the chimney. We're nearly 3 now, old enough to toddle into trouble and young enough to catch whatever lingers in the air. The rattle has returned to your chest, a wet, dragging sound that shakes through your ribs when you breathe too deep. Last night your face burned while your feet were ice. The sun arrives late and sullen, dragging its light across the floor as if reluctant to begin. Your siblings bicker over chores, their voices low to avoid waking you. One plucks at a lice comb with the same precision. He once used to play in the dirt. His expression is the same, either way. Distraction is currency here. Comfort comes second to function. Your mother wrapped you in rags soaked with vinegar and muttered St. Winifred's name until her voice cracked. The village says little about them, but much with their eyes. When the baker's pig dropped dead without warning last week, someone scratched a crooked cross on Alice's cottage door. Just charcoal, just superstition. But still, it stayed. In Tudor England, folk healers, usually women, stood at the edge of legitimacy. Many were midwives, herb keepers, bone setters. They worked not from books, but memory. Their remedies might include willow bark, garlic salves, or charms tied with red string. Some were effective, Some were absurd. Some were both. But if a cure failed, or if crops withered, or a baby didn't make it, blame was easily stirred. Accusation, like fever, spread fast. What makes a woman dangerous, if not simply being noticed? Your mother visits Goody Harrow again. It is not a walk of confidence, but one of necessity. This morning the salve was made thicker, goose fat, mint, something sharp like mustard. She rubbed it into your skin with calloused hands. The air inside her cottage is thick with candle smoke and silence. Some believe women like Goody Harrow were the last threads of a pre-Christian world. Ancient rituals passed down in whispers, unbroken by time. Truth doesn't always wear a name. At home, the fire snaps. Your father hasn't spoken all morning. That night, the coughing slows. It's not gone, just softened, like thunder moving farther off. Outside, frost has painted the edges of the woodpile. Some nights your mother still sings. Which stories do we inherit in silence? One historical treatment for fever in Tudor England involved roasting a live pigeon and placing its warm body against a child's feet. Sympathetic magic, some said. The pouch beneath your mattress contains wormwood, dried nettle, and a scrap of red wool. The fire doesn't protest. It takes what's given. Always. The world outside your cottage is larger now. Your first job is not spoken. It simply begins. When the village bell rings 3 times in the morning, everyone listens. Grief is a sound that stays in the air, long after it stops ringing. Beyond the cottage walls, in the soft underbelly of the village, the air thickens with mist. Dawn arrives without drama, pale, cold, and forgettable. A milk fog rolls over the fields, blurring fence posts others, thinner, almost drinkable. Today, someone has stirred in a knob of fat, likely pork, perhaps rancid, and a sliver of onion. It's a feast in its way. The taste is oddly sweet, the fat catching on the tongue like candle wax. No one complains. Hunger trains the tongue quickly. One sister hums a tune through her teeth as she eats. Another scratches at her leg and watches the ceiling. Fingers are kept near the flames, feet wrapped in whatever rags can be found. One of the hens has gone missing. A bad sign. Foxes are bold in lean seasons, or worse. Neighbors. Hunger changes what people will take. Not just food, but dignity. The older sister slips out to check the coop. It's not comfortable. Its legs wobble. Its surface is rough with splinters, but it's warm. From here, the world is observable. You can see the pot sway slightly as it boils. Hear the drip of rain from a leak above the window frame. Smell the faint iron temps of your father's boots drying beside the fire. He worked all yesterday in the fields, pulling stones from furrows, fingers stiff and red by the end. He hasn't said much since. The boots steamed faintly, exhaling into the room like old dogs. Her apron clutched tight against her chest. She whistles a tune no one taught her. It floats through the doorway like smoke from a tired candle. It's easy to grow, long-lasting, sharp enough to transform the dullest meals. A stew with onion was a stew worth remembering. Many homes hung them from beams, their scent mingling with herbs and smoke. Some believed onions could ward off illness. Others claimed they absorbed bad humors. Whether truth or tale, they stayed. A vegetable with myth stitched into its roots. It brushes your leg and moves on, choosing a corner where sunlight touches the floor in a single tired stripe. You wonder if it remembers each room by warmth alone. Your youngest brother is asleep near the door, mouth open, cheeks smudged with ash. A trail of drool pools into his collar. No one bothers to wipe it. Sleep is sacred when it comes. It exists somewhere beyond the hills, behind stone walls, dressed in layers thicker than anything in this house. Someone coughs. Someone sighs. The cat curls tight. It's said he dines on swan, on quince tarts, on meat so tender it weeps when sliced. Your mother shrugs. Because God put us here, she says. A simple answer, practiced. No one challenges it. Outside, the trees sway with tired shoulders. Inside, bodies nest against each other in soft piles. Warmth by proximity, comfort by exhaustion. Your mother whispers to the goat before she sleeps, a ritual no one questions. She says it helps the milk flow. She strokes its ears with a tenderness she rarely shows elsewhere. The air smells of smoke, boiled grain, and something sharp like vinegar. Sermons preached divine order? Yes, but hunger is allowed tutor. Riots did happen. Rebellions flared. Even within the mud and soot of daily life, the notion that life might be unfair was not foreign, just dangerous. A child could wonder aloud, an adult could not. And sheep alike, until the whole world seems wrapped in linen. From inside the cottage, the morning is marked not by sunlight, but by the smell of porridge scraping in the pot. Inside, wrapped carefully like treasure, is a single onion and 2 small carrots. He watches the stars, though he cannot name them. The air bites. The wind circles his boots like a beggar. He returns only when the pipe burns out. They are soft, beginning to wither, but still edible. She nods once, as if in prayer, then adds them to the pot. The carrots brighten the porridge just barely, a little orange among so much beige. The smell sharpens. The children gather. Even your father sniffs, then pretends not to care. He busies himself with an axe handle in need of repair. A thin meal, cooked with more water than oats, seasoned only with salt if there's any despair. Cloths serve many lives here. Napkin, bandage, bonnet, rag, pouch. Their edges are embroidered with stains rather than thread. A spoon drops. A shout follows. The oldest boy, impatient and lean, scolds the goat again for chewing the firewood. The goat, of course, doesn't care. It stares blankly into the ash and keeps chewing. The fire gives its reluctant warmth, puffing against damp kindling like lungs stitched with age. The porridge is served in shared bowls, passed from hand to hand. 1 wooden spoon, 1 rhythm of bites. Some mornings the oats are gray and lumpy. On Tudor households, breakfast was not the indulgence it would one day become. For most villagers, it was a single warm meal, eaten before dawn chores. Meat was rare. Milk, when available, soured fast. The idea of fullness was more myth than memory. Food was function, fuel, not pleasure. What becomes of joy when taste becomes duty? After the bowls are licked clean, your mother folds the scraps of linen and hangs them near the hearth to dry. Not from washing, but from proximity to mouths. The cottage is restless today. Everyone's breath visible in the cold. Their essaying in the village. Better to lose a hen than your good name. But names don't boil into soup. Silence clings longer when it's fed by fear. Inside, the child-sized bench, near the hearth, has become your favorite place. Now the cat steps past your toes, tail held high like a banner. Everything within the cottage breathes at its own pace. Floorboards creak with memory. Pots hum. Even the walls seem to hold in their breath when storms pass too close. What does a house remember when no one is listening? Your mother pulls out a cloth from beneath the bed. Onions were a staple in Tudor kitchens, even the poorest ones. The carrots break down quickly. The onion softens. No one speaks. Even the fire listens now. The scent of soup is the only kind of luxury some days. One of the children asks a question, mouth half full. Why don't we eat like the king? The others laugh. Not cruelly, just flatly. The king is an idea, not a man. Yet some historians debate whether common folk truly accepted their place so easily. Is resignation learned or inherited? The porridge pot is empty by dusk. Spoons are wiped and tucked away. The fire sighs low. Later, your father steps outside to smoke a pipe. The night ends not with a story, but with the shuffle of blankets and the scrape of stone pulled from the hearth for warmth. Stillness settles like dust on the beams. At midsummer, the air thickens and sweetens. The cottage breathes easier now, doors swung wide, windows propped with stones to let in light and breeze. The scent of growing things seeps into the cracks. Marjoram from the herb plot, horse sweat from the road, and the heavy perfume of sun-warmed thatch. One sings to a beetle crawling on a rock. Another naps with his cheek pressed against a shallow puddle, the mud cool against his skin. Your mother sits on a stool near the edge of the garden, snapping off stalks of pea pods into a cloth bag. She works slowly, not out of fatigue, but satisfaction. The vines grew, the soil gave. There's enough for supper and seeds besides. Inside, feet are bare again, scratched and brown from soil. Peas taste like sweetness without sugar, like water and leaf, and something you can't quite name. A well-aged round could last for months, even years, if protected. It was sometimes used as wages, sometimes as gifts. The poor rarely had access to it outside feast days or charity. When they did, it was savored slowly. She mimics your mother's movements, stirring in circles, tapping the spoon once against the pot before lifting it to her mouth. Later, she leaves the girl to finish the pot alone and walks down to the stream to rinse clothes, trusting the house to hold itself. That evening, the broth is good, a little thin, but flavored with mint and marrow and a hint of wild garlic. Your sister beams when she thinks no one is watching. Her fingers are quick now, no longer clumsy. She's begun tucking her hair under a kerchief like a grown woman. Yesterday, she lit the hearth without asking, but your mother strokes the cover as if it might someday speak aloud. It smells of dust and salt and age, like something buried and recovered. Still, some made their way down. A Bible gifted for service, a psalter left by a dying priest. They weren't read so much as revered, talismans of knowledge and paper. Promises that someone, somewhere, could capture thought with ink. He holds it high, shouts his discovery, and brings it home as if he's caught a bird. The stone is smooth and warm from the sun. It rests now on the windowsill beside the cat, who bats at it once, then ignores it. Your mother does not throw it away. She lets it stay. Later, your brother opens it just to sniff the pages. One says it belongs to the priest and must be returned. Your mother says nothing, just smiles. Later that night, she places the stone beside the sleeping child. It leaves a small dust print on the cloth. He says it smells like candle wax and burnt barley. Someone points out the first star. Someone else pretends to see a second. The fields are quiet. Even the goats have gone still. Your mother stands at the edge of the garden, apron folded in her hands, watching nothing in particular. Others believe childhood never truly existed as we now know it, that children were seen only as incomplete adults, smaller laborers, more fragile mouths. But surely something childlike lingers in the way a girl smiles into a steaming pot. Today, she sorted lentils by color before cooking them. The pot is passed hand to hand. There are lentils, carrots, and the last of the barley. No one speaks much. Just chewing, nodding, the occasional hum. Your father tells a joke about a baker and a donkey. It doesn't make much sense, but everyone laughs anyway. Laughter sticks longer in the air during summer. It's lighter, easier to fold into memory. They crunch softly, their skins splitting in the mouth like thin paper. He carries a staff and a patched brown robe, and his breath smells of sour beer and onions. He speaks in rhymes and sings half verses from the Gospels. The children trail after him like ducklings. He blesses foreheads, collects offerings, and disappears again before nightfall. He leaves behind a leather-bound book, worm-eaten and faded, which your father places on a shelf made of stacked stones. A bundle of lavender and thyme hangs from the rafters, twisting gently when the wind comes through. The cat sleeps in the windowsill, its belly exposed, whiskers twitching. It's grown fatter, slower. A summer cat, indulgent and warm. The sun blinks through the hedge in flickers of gold. The floor rushes have been replaced with fresher cuts, softer and greener, giving the room a faint scent of crushed grass and wildflowers. The heat has pushed the family outside. Children lays in the long shadow of the hedge, picking burrs from each other's sleeves. Food is still scarce, but the rhythm has softened. There is rhythm now, a rising, a ripening. This is the reward for endurance. His hands are blistered from lifting flagstones, but he carries a small sack under one arm. Barley, a scrap of cheese wrapped in waxed cloth, and a knob of dried apple. The children stare at the cheese like it's a talisman. He slices it into thin strips with a knife honed. So often it now curves like a crescent moon. Each child receives one piece. It's yellow, pungent, and crumbles against the teeth with the taste of salt, cave, and time. How long can gratitude last before it becomes expectation? Inside, the hearth is cleaner, smokes less now, and the bricks have been scrubbed with sand and water until they resemble stone again. Your father has returned from 3 days' work at the Lord's Hall. In Tudor times, cheese was both a luxury and a preservation tactic, a way to trap milk's goodness before it soured. Some foods feed the stomach, others feed the memory. Your oldest sister has learned to make broth on her own. There is pride in her movements. It's not loud, not declared, but present. Your mother says nothing, just watches. Historians debate when childhood ended in Tudor England. Some claim it ended at 7, the age of reason, of learning, of labor. Does adulthood arrive quietly, or must it be named? A traveling friar comes through the village one afternoon. No one in the house can read it. The letters swim, alien, and looping. Books were rare in homes like yours. Most were kept by clergy or noble houses. The book sleeps now on its stone shelf, listening. In the long grass near the ditch, your youngest brother finds a stone shaped like a heart. The children argue over what it means. One says it's lucky. One says it's proof the earth loves them. Small treasures carry weight far greater than their size. That evening, supper is eaten in the yard, beneath a sky blushed with blue and coral. Afterward, the children lie on their backs in the grass, watching the sky darken into velvet. Above, the stars gather in silence, patient and ancient. The heat deepens, pressing into the thatch like an unwanted guest. Midday hangs heavy, still and swollen, over the village. The air smells of dung and wild mint, of sweat soaked into cloth, of hay ripening too fast in the sun. Some villages buried children every July like clockwork. Brewed beer and ale were safer than water boiled in their making, though the poorest often had neither. Inside the cottage, shadows pool at the edges where breeze cannot reach. Shirts cling to backs, feet shuffle, irritable and sticky. His mother has scrubbed the doorway with vinegar and ash, and the smell of it lingers, sharp and sour, like fear that doesn't know how to hide. Many believed in miasma, the idea that disease came from foul air. Others blamed sin, imbalance of humors, or curses. Herbs were used more to disguise the smell than to cure. And yet, some remedies worked, not because of belief, but despite it. No one speaks of plague, not yet. It's too early, too warm, too soon, since the last time your mother listens. She always listens. Her hands move slowly across his forehead. She doesn't speak. Instead, she reaches for a pot of thick, cooling mash and scoops out a smear. Mustard and tallow, maybe, or mashed garlic and lard. The sky blushes once, then darkens. Moths flutter near the doorway. One finds its way inside and dances around the fire. Children watch it, silent and still, as if it carries a message. It lands on your sister's sleeve. She does not brush it away. She rubs it onto his chest and wraps him in wool. Nothing came of it, but he still listens harder now. Every cough, every rustle, every gust of wind is a possible warning. A jug of water sits by the door, covered with cloth. It smells faintly of metal and clay. The air tastes of onion and ash. Tonight his knife rests near the floorboards, dull but visible. For protection, perhaps.
Ouch!
Just for certainty. The cloth smells of mildew, warmth, and old soap. The fire glows faintly. The heat is heavy, but the cough softens. But still your father tightens the door latch with an extra loop of twine. Few are written. Fewer still are trusted. Sometimes a salve cures, sometimes it doesn't. If the child recovers, the ingredients are remembered. If not, the recipe is quietly buried with the child's cloth. Some things are not repeated: broth with bits of barley, leaves from the garden, and a sliver of meat that no one claims to have caught. It might be pigeon, it might not be. Smell is strong. Slightly sweet, slightly off, but hunger outweighs uncertainty. A spoonful goes in and burns the tongue. The children blink through it, grateful nonetheless. Salt is nearly gone. Your father breaks a hard crust of bread and soaks it, letting the broth soften the edges. He hands half to your mother without speaking. She takes it. Nothing is wasted. Your sister crushes herbs into a bundle and ties it around her neck. Your mother burns dried rosemary in the hearth. One of the children flicks it off gently, not because they're afraid, but because they're too tired to crush it. Outside, a dog howls once, distant and hoarse. The fields beyond the lane bake under the sky like flatbread. Someone says it will rain. Someone else hopes it won't. Neither is right. The sky holds its breath. Even the goat lies flat, side heaving with each breath, its horns twitching at flies it no longer bothers to chase. Your mother has tied her hair with twine and wet a cloth to wear around her neck. The bucket at the door has gone warm. Everyone drinks anyway, though they pinch their noses against the taste. The water carries a coppery scent now. Not clean, but not foul enough to pour away. This is the danger of summer. Beauty disguises risk. The stream flows clear but hides sickness beneath the shimmer. Children splash in it. Dogs drink from it. Someone upstream empties a pot and no one downstream ever knows for sure. Dysentery was common in Tudor summers. No sewage systems. Waste seeped into rivers and wells. Diarrhea, dehydration, and fever followed. What price do we pay for what seems harmless? This morning, a boy 2 cottages down began vomiting. The fire doesn't crackle, it hisses. A soft, wet sound, like wood exhaling pain. The smoke is gray and thick. It curls through the room like a ghost, unsure of its purpose. You breathe it in anyway, eyes stinging. Your tongue tastes like bark. The cat has disappeared into the rafters. Only its eyes give it away, glowing faintly as it watches the room with a hunter's calm. Historians debate how much Tudor villagers truly understood about illness. Is survival more about reason or ritual? Supper is thin again. A beetle crawls across the table. The broth clings to the pot long after it's empty, a sticky memory of what once was. Your younger brother coughs in his sleep. Not deep, not wet, just once, and then again. Remedies pass from mother to daughter, house to house, mouth to ear. When does healing become hope, and hope become memory? Outside, the sun sets fast, slipping behind the treetops like a secret. Your father has taken to sleeping near the door, a habit he picked up last summer when a stranger passed through with black spots on his chest. Some things make sense only when held in the hand. The night is hot and breathless. The goat shifts often. The children sleep uneasily, limbs tangled, blankets tossed. The moon rises late and distant. No one speaks, but everyone listens. The fire murmurs to itself, not yet ready to sleep. The heat deepens, pressing into the thatch like an unwanted guest. Midday hangs heavy, still and swollen over the village. Everyone drinks anyway, though they pinch their noses against the taste. Some villages buried children every July like clockwork. Brewed beer and ale were safer than water, boiled in their making, though the poorest often had neither. The water carries a coppery scent now, not clean, but not foul enough to pour away. This is the danger of summer. Beauty disguises risk. The stream flows clear, but hides sickness beneath the shimmer. Children splash in it, dogs drink from it. Many believed in miasma, the idea that disease came from foul air. Others blamed sin, imbalance of humors, or curses. Broth with bits of barley, leaves from the garden, and a sliver of meat that no one claims to have caught. One of the children flicks it off gently, not because they're afraid, but because they're too tired to crush it. Outside, a dog howls once, distant and hoarse. The fields beyond the lane bake under the sky like flatbread. Someone says it will rain. Someone else hopes it won't. Neither is right. The sky holds its breath. Few are written. Fewer still are trusted. Sometimes a salve cures. Sometimes it doesn't. If the child recovers, the ingredients are remembered. Not, the recipe is quietly buried with the child's cloth. Some things are not repeated. One finds its way inside and dances around the fire. The children watch it, silent and still, as if it carries a message. It lands on your sister's sleeve. She does not brush it away. It might be pigeon, it might not be. Nothing came of it, but he still listens harder now. Every cough, every rustle, every gust of wind is a possible warning. Tonight, his knife rests near the floorboards, dull but visible. Not for protection, perhaps, just for certainty. The smell is strong, slightly sweet, slightly off. But hunger outweighs uncertainty. A spoonful goes in and burns the tongue. Her hands move slowly across his forehead. She doesn't speak. A jug of water sits by the door, covered with cloth. No, it smells faintly of metal and clay. The air tastes of onion and ash. Instead, she reaches for a pot of thick, cooling mash and scoops out a smear. Mustard and tallow, maybe, or mashed garlic and lard. She rubs it onto his chest and wraps him in wool. The cloth smells of mildew, warmth, and old soap. The fire glows faintly. The heat is heavy, but the cough softens. The children blink through it, grateful nonetheless. Salt is nearly gone. Your father breaks a hard crust of bread and soaks it, letting the broth soften the edges. He hands half to your mother without speaking. She takes it. Nothing is wasted. Herbs were used more to disguise the smell than to cure. And yet some remedies worked. Not because of belief, but despite it. Someone upstream empties a pot, and no one downstream ever knows for sure. The air smells of dung and wild mint, of sweat soaked into cloth, of hay ripening too fast in the sun. Inside the cottage, shadows pool at the edges where breeze cannot reach. Shirts cling to backs. Feet shuffle, irritable and sticky. His mother has scrubbed the doorway with vinegar and ash, and the smell of it lingers, sharp and sour, like fear that doesn't know how to hide. No one speaks of plague, not yet. It's too early, too warm, too soon since the last time. But still, your father tightens the door latch with an extra loop of twine. Your sister crushes herbs into a bundle and ties it around her neck. Your mother burns dried rosemary in the hearth. Even the goat lies flat, side heaving with each breath, its horns twitching at flies it no longer bothers to chase. Your mother has tied her hair with twine and wet a cloth to wear around her neck. The bucket at the door has gone warm. Dysentery was common in Tudor summers, with no sewage systems, waste seeped into rivers and wells. Diarrhea, dehydration, and fever followed. What price do we pay for what seems harmless? This morning, a boy 2 cottages down began vomiting. The fire doesn't crackle, it hisses. A soft, wet sound, like wood exhaling pain. The smoke is gray and thick, curls through the room like a ghost, unsure of its purpose. You breathe it in anyway, eyes stinging. Your tongue tastes like bark. The cat has disappeared into the rafters. Only its eyes give it away, glowing faintly as it watches the room with a hunter's calm. Historians debate how much Tudor villagers truly understood about illness. Is survival more about reason or ritual? Supper is thin again. A beetle crawls across the table. The broth clings to the pot long after it's empty, a sticky memory of what once was. Your younger brother coughs in his sleep, not deep, not wet, just once, and then again. Your mother listens. She always listens. Remedies pass from mother to daughter, house to house, mouth to ear. When does healing become hope, and hope become memory? Outside, the sun sets fast, slipping behind the treetops like a secret. The sky blushes once, then darkens. Moths flutter near the doorway. Your father has taken to sleeping near the door, a habit he picked up last summer when a stranger passed through with black spots on his chest. Some things make sense only when held in the hand. The night is hot and breathless. The goat shifts often. The children sleep uneasily, limbs tangled, blankets tossed. The moon rises late and distant. No one speaks, but everyone listens. The fire murmurs to itself, not yet ready to sleep. Reflection glimmers in the puddles left behind by a night of soft rain. The sky wears a robe of pale linen, clouds stretch thin and worn. Steam lifts gently from the earth as the morning warms, curling around the stones in the lane like forgotten breath. The fields, slick and satisfied, soak in the last of the storm. In the hedgerows, bees begin their slow work. Inside the cottage, something has shifted. Not loud or sudden, but sure. The fever has passed. The youngest child, who had burned for 3 days, now sleeps without a tremble. His chest rises with steadier rhythm, lips slack and damp, skin warm but no longer scorched. Parish records tell of fines for withholding aid, but letters from the poor often speak of silent kindnesses. Food left at the door. Cloth mended in secret, firewood stacked without name. Acts that disappeared as easily as they came. No wandering past the path, no dipping toes into the stream. The boy with the cough has not been seen, and his door remains closed. The priest visited twice. Each time, he left with his hands folded and his eyes downcast. That tells more than words could. No one speaks of death. But death speaks in silence. Your mother hasn't left his side in hours. Her eyes are rimmed with fatigue. A sister sneezes twice loudly, then insists she's fine. Eating them was a luxury, especially whole. The house glows not with candles, but with the hush of held breath. The storm has passed. The air is warm. A single carrot is found beneath the shelf. Forgotten, wrinkled, but not yet spoiled. It is diced and added to the pot. Broth simmers again, only quiet, only breath, only sleep. With more gratitude than ingredients, many were baked into pies for the wealthier. For the poor, they were medicine. Your mother watches her for longer than necessary. Then quietly, she returns to washing a cloth that already appears clean. But her hands no longer shake. The cloth she used to cool his brow lies beside her like an exhausted prayer. She does not speak long, only nods, and offers the bundle with both hands. Your mother takes it with quiet thanks. Stirred by a breeze that carries no scent of smoke or ash or illness, just cool air, soft and slow, content with its watch. Pressing against the stillness like a lullaby, the loaf smells of ash and rye with a hint of burnt crust. Your father finds it tucked behind the barrel near the door, nestled in straw no one remembers placing there. The shell is speckled and still warm. He calls the children in and places the egg in the center of the table like a jewel. The decision is made without words. The sick child will get it when he wakes. Fever could linger on linen, sickness trapped in fiber. It is fed slowly, mouthful by mouthful, from a carved wooden spoon. The boy swallows each bite. His eyes stay closed, but his lips move. One mistake could send it spiraling again. Families had to choose quickly. Keep a bonnet, risk the rest. More than one mother whispered apologies to the flames as she fed them a blanket. It's misshapen, thick at one end, but beautiful in its imperfection. The children gather quickly. Corner is torn and passed down the line, each face lifting just slightly as it touches the lips. The smell in the room has changed. Less vinegar, more breath. The air tastes of sleep and cooled porridge and rosemary steeped too long. Recovery in Tudor homes was never a guarantee. When it came, it felt like magic. But often, it was the quiet accumulation of care, boiled leaves, scraped roots, sleepless nights, and the body's silent fight. Some believed saints guided the healing. Others said good humors returned. Few asked too deeply. When a child survived, the how mattered less than the fact. Bread passed hand to hand is worth more than sermons. In hard times, those with ovens shared warmth through food, even if their faith was thin and tired. Sometimes it was out of love, sometimes guilt, sometimes simply fear of becoming the next one in need. Which matters more, truth or the comfort of its ending? Outside, a neighbor brings bread, still warm, wrapped in cloth. This is how generosity appears in lean places, not with fanfare, but with substance. Historians still question how widespread communal support truly was. Is charity truer when no one claims it? The children are told to stay near today. The air smells of soap boiled over too long, sharp, it's almost meaty, and the faint metallic tang of something being scrubbed from wood. A dead child's possessions were often burned or buried, not out of superstition, but protection. How much love hides behind letting go? A hen lays a second egg by midday. This is rare, unexpected. Later, the egg is boiled carefully, cracked open with care, and mashed with a pinch of salt saved for this moment. Eggs in Tudor villages were both staple and rarity, common from those who kept hens, but too often sold or traded away for coin or cloth. Even small gifts carry the weight of great intent. That evening, the fire crackles like laughter. Children lean against one another. The goat lies quietly. Even the cat does not twitch in its sleep. A warm room can be quieter than any chapel. The night brings no surprises. Cloth flutters near the window. The fire sighs low. The moon lingers longer than expected, hanging pale and indifferent above the thatch like a coin forgotten on a shelf. The sky never quite darkened last night, just dimmed into velvet, soft and creased at the edges. The hearth feels abandoned, its bricks still warm to the touch, but no longer comforting. Your mother rises first. She doesn't sigh, doesn't groan, just moves. Her feet find the cold stone without flinching. She kneels by the hearth and begins to coax the flame back to life. A twist of straw, a flint. The breath of a woman who has done this more times than she could count. The kindling crackles but resists. Still, she keeps at it, pushing yesterday's ash toward the threshold. Others mention pride-swept floors, herbs strewn to freshen the rushes, linens rinsed weekly. Cleanliness, like beauty, may have been in the eye of the beholder. The scent of smoke lifts against soft, sour, with a faint echo of meat long since eaten. She hums something, not a song, just sound. Then, finally, a thread of fire curls upward, thin as hope. Just a marking of Time-Man invitation, not a warning. Or for drawing patterns in the mud. He doesn't say one for each hand. The crust crunches. The inside is dense, sour with age, but undeniably bread. It tastes like safety. He accepts it with quiet hands, the first food he has eaten alone in days. He doesn't smile, but his fingers tighten around it. Crumbs trail down his shirt like seeds. A sock, frayed at the toe. Her fingers move faster now, muscle memory guiding the needle. Her thread is red. Patches weren't shameful, they were marks of effort. A well-darned sock could outlast a poorly made one. Sometimes red thread was used to ward off sickness. The bread is mostly gone. The water jug is filled. Your father places his boots beside the fire. Your sister tucks away the sewing. Your mother stands at the threshold for a moment longer than needed, eyes on the sky. No words. Just the cool breath of night on her face. The broom returns to its corner. The house exhales. Sometimes it was used because it was all that was left. Not because it matches anything, but because it's what remains. The hole closes slowly, the stitch winding like ivy. The sock will last another month, maybe more. In the corner, the youngest draws with coal on a flat stone, a house, a goat, crooked sun, like something survived. The smell fills the house and leaks out into the air beyond, where a crow perches on the woodpile watching. He just carves, and the wood curls away in thin ribbons. The smell is sweet, green, faintly peppery. Shavings scatter across his lap and drift to the floor. No one moves to attend. The priest has visited often lately, and there are chores to do. The sound lingers. It rolls across the village like a slow tide, seeping into corners, settling into ears. Even the chickens seem to pause. Dawn is slow to arrive, reluctant. The light that eventually seeps in is gray, cool, and uncertain. Inside the cottage, no one stirs yet. It was where gossip was shared, and the dead were remembered. For many, religion was less about doctrine and more about rhythms, feast days, saints, fasts, bells, blessings. Belief ran parallel to fear. A family might pray in the morning and still bury bread at a crossroads to ward off bad luck that evening. The fire was rarely allowed to die. When it did, relighting, it felt like restarting time. A child coughs from beneath a shared blanket. Another groans and rolls toward the wall. The goat bleats once, more out of habit than need. Light pools at the base of the window like rainwater, sluggish and silver. Your father stirs last, as always. His joints creak louder than the bed frame. He grunts as he stretches. Then he begins to lace his boots slowly, methodically, as though each loop is a prayer against the coming day. The silence is not sleep, it's waiting. Quiet, thoughtful kind of pause, like the breath before a question. The fire is out. It died sometime in the early hours, and its ashes lie curled like tiny petals, bone-white and hollow. A Tudor hearth was the center of the home, physically, spiritually, emotionally. Warmth, food, protection, light. What are we without the sparks that tether us? The house wakes slowly. Your sister moves to sweep the floor. The broom is a bundle of reeds tied together with old string. It scatters more dust than it collects. There's debate about whether Tudor homes were truly as filthy as later historians claimed. Some letters describe grime, pests, and rot. Does dignity bloom in spite of dirt or because of it? Outside, the church bell rings once, not a death knell. Your brother sharpens a stick against the stone step. His hands are stained with earth. The stick is for nothing. Or maybe for fishing. Faith in Tudor England was constant, but not always pious. Is belief shaped by conviction or by repetition? The loaf from the night before is ready. Cracked on top, golden at the edges, still warm in the center. It is broken into uneven pieces. A slice is given to the child who is sick. Some meals nourish the body. Others feed the story of our survival. Later, your mother sits by the window and begins mending. Textiles were precious in Tudor homes. Cloth was handed down, remade, restitched. Is care less meaningful when it shows? Evening comes, stretching its shadow across the doorway. The wind turns colder. The goat is tied in for the night. The cat settles by the hearth, paws tucked, tail flicking once before stillness. Some silences carry more truth than the loudest sermon. Beyond the hedgerows, the harvest moon begins to rise, full and golden like an overripe plum. Light spills across the roof in uneven stripes, brushing the thatch with color the sun forgot. Crickets begin their song, rhythmic and tinny, as if the earth itself were whispering to the stars. The cottage doesn't glow, not really, but it hums. Not with sound, but with presence. His silence is different from tiredness. It leans heavier, thick around the shoulders, slow to shake. He spent the afternoon at the edge of the field, mending a fence that will not last the winter. Each post sinks deeper into the mud, each repair undone by frost before it sets. Still, he worked. Still, he returns home with hands raw from rope and splinters, with a stare that settles too long on nothing at all. The steam carries rosemary, a hint of garlic, the ghost of turnip. One strand clings to her cheek, damp from the steam, lit gold by firelight. She does not brush it away. Her hands are too tired. Or perhaps she doesn't notice. Her thoughts are elsewhere on the coming frost, on the rising price of salt, on the wheeze in your youngest brother's breath. Your mother stirs with care, more for the rhythm than the result. The broth is thin, the root was shriveled, but it settles into a body like damp, invisible, and inescapable. But still, something simmers. The ladle rests against the rim. A wisp of steam coils upward, dancing briefly before dissolving. Another breathes in hiccups, the last traces of tears long past. The cottage groans once, gently, sound like memory bending. Not to smoke, not to watch the sky, just to feel the cold. The door creaks, then closes. The wind breathes in his absence. A moth flutters once more near the coals, then disappears into shadow. In the stillness, the broth cools. The bread from yesterday is gone hard. Someone drops it in the broth to soften it, to coax one more meal from what's left. The goat shifts outside, hooves clicking against stone. A storm is coming. You can smell it, the temps of distant iron, the wet promise in the wind, the press of the air against your ribs like cloth pulled too tight. The kind of hum that fills a place that's held too much, too long, and still manages to breathe. Your sister sits alone by the hearth, her fingers tracing slow circles on the ash stone. A boiled root lies uneaten beside her. It's not hunger, this time just weariness. She has grown taller, bones stretching like saplings pulled toward unseen light. The wool at her collar has frayed again. Her eyes follow a moth spiraling above the embers. A dry summer could kill more surely than any war. Superstition and science mingled easily. Saints for rain, herbs for wind, prayers scribbled on scrap parchment and hung from doorposts. Some families left their boots outside to catch the blessing. Others burned a scrap of linen and whispered the name of the weather witch. Belief, in all its forms, was a kind of shelter. In this house, silence is not feared, is studied. The way it folds between spoons, the way it curls in your mother's knitting, the way it breathes out of your father's coat as it dries near the fire. To press the beads between her fingers like seeds waiting to be planted. She doesn't whisper. She doesn't weep. Just sits, hands closed around the string, thumb moving from bead to bead, as if remembering something she'd never learned aloud. It hits the wall with a dull thud, rights itself and tries again, again. What does the moth seek, if not warmth it cannot survive? Your father has not spoken much today. The children watch him. They do not speak. They shift closer to the walls, soften their steps, grow quieter with each hour. In Tudor homes, fathers often bore the heaviest silence. Work was expectation, not identity, and words spent unwisely might unravel authority. But when the crops failed or work grew scarce, that silence thickened. Some scholars call it dignity, others call it erasure. The line is worn. What is strength, if never allowed to tremble? Pot boils on the hearth, though no one is truly hungry. Your mother's hair has come loose. There is no way to measure worry. It doesn't weigh the bones. It doesn't blister skin. Some burdens are worn beneath the skin. The fire has burned low again, more ember than flame. Storms were watched closely in Tudor villages. A flood could undo a season's work. Is the line between faith and fear always so thin? Your mother reaches for her rosary, not to speak the prayers, not tonight, but to hold it, the children sleep, or try to. One shifts, murmurs, pulls the blanket higher. Even silence has its architecture. Before sleep, your father steps outside. Some nights hold more than they reveal. The frost returns, as soft as memory, but the heat is shy today. The fire groans more than it crackles. The pot of water placed near it barely steams, the chill stealing more warmth than the flames can give. Your mother places her hands near the fire, palms open like pages longing to be read. Her fingers are red, the knuckles swollen with cold and use. Still, without padded boots, glass panes, or warm ovens, even a mild season meant suffering, and the poorest were always cold. She kneads dough with care, folding it with a rhythm that feels less like baking and more like memory. The pail is heavier in winter, the stream slower, crusted with fragile ice at the edges. She adds a pinch of salt from the stone jarrah gesture, more than a seasoning, and stirs slowly. The porridge is gray and thick, with yesterday's crumbs folded back in. She tastes it with the back of the spoon, nods once, and continues stirring. He dips carefully, the surface cracking in delicate patterns around the wooden rim. Most families subsisted on pottage grains, roots, herbs, and anything saved from earlier harvests. The children gather closer to the hearth. One coughs, dry and weak. Your mother presses a cloth to his mouth, then holds him longer than usual. Her eyes don't leave his face. She doesn't blink. The cough fades, still doesn't look away. Porridge wasn't breakfast. It was survival, recycled, stretched, sometimes eaten cold from the pot's bottom. Cold air crept into lungs and refused to leave. What began as a chill might end as a burial. Some households hung herbs at the doors, burned dried leaves, or tied red thread around the ankles. Protection came in forms both seen and believed. The water smells of clay and moss, clean but sharp. He carries it home with both hands, spilling little, his sleeves stiff with frost by the time he returns. Even the older children, too proud in summer, press their backs against one another now. It feels full like a bowl filled to the edge, threatening to spill if stirred too suddenly. The goat sleeps just outside the door, breath steaming into the dark. The cat has moved from the bench to the blankets, welcomed without complaint. The fire is coaxed to last one log, then another, the last of the good wood from the stack. Smoke curls lazily from chimneys, if smoke comes at all. Some homes sit quiet, their doors unmoved, their paths untraveled. A cart has broken its axle near the churchyard, its wheel half buried in frozen mud. No one rushes to fix it. Everything slows in frost. A crow lands on the fence post and watches, head tilted, feathers fluffed. It pecks at nothing, then it flies, brushing the earth in silence. It clings to the edges of the garden plot, dusts the roof with lace, creeps into corners where breath lingers overnight, sits near the light, eyes narrowed, mouth quiet. He's been quiet more lately, not in anger and thought. Its movements are slower now, heavier in the wrist, but precise. The blade sings against the stone, with each stroke steel and stone in conversation. And windows were often stuffed with cloth or paper to block drafts. Most slept in shifts near the fire. Illness waited in the corners. Harsh frost could undo even the best laid plans. Blankets are piled high, wool, linen, burlap, even an old coat stitched at the elbows. Their breath fogs the air as they sleep, curling toward the rafters like a prayer. One child talks in his sleep, muttering nonsense through chattering teeth. Another clutches a rag doll with a missing eye, her knuckles white around its waist. The cat is curled beneath the bench, fur puffed thick, tail twitching in dreams. Morning arrives without bird song, only the brittle crunch of footsteps in half-frozen mud. The sky is pale, dry, and cloudless. Inside, the air feels thinner, not unpleasant, just persistent. Even the walls seem to sweat, the wood swollen with cold. The rushes on the floor have turned dark again, slick in the corners. Few have been replaced with straw. Though it squeaks louder when walked on, no one seems to mind. Every small noise is an echo in winter, as if the wind has found a crack and slipped in during the night to sleep alongside everyone else. The hearth has been lit. Winter was not just a season, it was an adversary. In Tudor England, homes weren't insulated. What does it mean to outlast something that returns every year? The children sleep longer these mornings. The room smells of damp wool and boiled roots. Some historians argue that Tudor winters weren't significantly harsher than ours today, but to the poor, every degree mattered. Can hardship be measured in anything but bodies? One child rises early to fetch water. Your mother ladles the water into the pot for porridge. Will take longer to heat. Rations were stretched thin during winter. Salted meat, if it existed, was precious. Even hunger finds a rhythm when repeated. Outside, the village feels still. Your father sharpens his blade, not for hunting, just for readiness. Tools, not words, often fill the man's silence. In the evening, the shutters creak. Draft slips through, catching the candle's flame and stretching it sideways, thin and pale. Illness in winter was feared more than hunger. Where does fear live when the fire burns low? That night, everyone sleeps closer. No one speaks. But the silence no longer feels hollow. Stillness has weight, and tonight it holds them all. Two clean hands draw suspicion. The village has noticed the girl with the lavender soap. Her fingers are always scrubbed, her nails clean, her sleeves pressed without visible patchwork. Lavender or rosemary was used by wealthier homesor in this case. Perhaps by someone borrowing knowledge from a time before her own. Cleanliness was not always admired. In a place where everyone carried the scent of survival, those who smelled different were marked. Her cloak is pale blue, the edges clean. She carries a basket with roots wrapped in linen. A child stares too long. A mother turns her back too quickly. Mother follows her steps, not cruel, just careful. She smells of flowers, faintly, even in the cold. Now, some say she uses water drawn before dawn. Others say she found her mother's old box of herbs and now boils petals into lye. Witchcraft trials ebbed and surged, often fueled by famine, fever, or fear. Women who healed, who aged alone, who kept cats or grew too much parsley, might draw unwanted attention. A smell could be suspicious. A silence could be damning. She doesn't speak much. She doesn't stay long when she comes to market. But people have begun to turn their heads when she passes. Not its own, just a smear, reddish-brown, drying near the shoulder. The children crowd around it, pressing fingers to fur. One says it's a fox. One says it's a sign. Your mother cleans it with boiled vinegar. The smell clears the room. The goat bleats once, low and resentful. The cat hisses and disappears beneath the bench. The silence she left behind fills spaces too small to name. The frost has lingered longer than usual, and the field is hard as bone. The goats eat more bark than grass. He sharpens tools by habit. His boots sit by the hearth, soles separating from the heel. He looks at them the way a man might look at a wound familiar, but still painful. A boy, older than your brother, his hands dirty, his voice thin from the wind. He's looking for the girl. Says she didn't return home after dusk. Says she was seen near the wood. He doesn't ask for help, just waits, eyes wide. Your mother gives him a strip of cloth for the cold. He nods and walks back into the night. Soap, in Tudor times, was often homemade from lye ash and animal fat. Its smell was sharp, sour, and rarely pleasant. In splinters, in coins. But he does watch your mother more carefully. Watches what herbs she uses. What she burns in the hearth. What she buries behind the garden fence. Trust is fragile when fear thickens the air. Someone else says she never cries. Third says her mother used to bleed people back before the bishop's warning. Your mother listens with a quiet face. She spoons out broth, adds a pinch of dried sage, and does not speak. But later, when your sister asks for lavender in the bath, your mother only shakes her head. Even beauty, when rare, can become a threat. She walks past the cottage only once this week. On a day when frost clings to every thatched roof like dust on an old book, not the next morning, not the day after. No body is found. No blood. No tracks. The story fades the way frost fades slowly, without apology. The lavender soap disappears from market. The house she lived in is shuttered. The goat grazes again, the whispers slow. Inside, your sister watches from the window. She doesn't say what she sees, but she clutches the comb in her lap a little tighter. Her own hair is clean today, washed with rainwater, combed with a patience she's only recently learned. But she doesn't speak to the girl. She doesn't smile, not because she doesn't want to, but because she has seen the way the others look at her. Suspicion spreads like smoke, thin and gray, curling into places it was never meant to be. A whisper finds its way into the house by evening. The girl's name spoken quietly. Then again, someone says she's not from here. In Tudor England, accusations did not require proof, only unease. Is safety found in sameness, or does it only mimic belonging? Your father speaks less about work now. He does not comment on the girl. He doesn't believe in stories. He believes in frost. Even reason wears thin when the cold sinks deep. One evening, the goat returns with blood on its flank. Later, someone knocks on the door. The wind follows him, quiet and expectant. No one sees the girl again. But your sister still avoids the blue comb, and your mother doesn't burn rosemary for weeks. Some absences echo louder than footsteps. When the bells don't stop, the village listens. Not the soft single chime of morning prayer, but the slow tolling of something heavier, something final. The broom is set against the wall instead of used. The fire is stirred, not for warmth, but because the sound of the poker in the ashes is something to do. The air smells of sour oats and wet wool and wood smoke thick as grief. The children don't ask questions. They don't need to. It begins just after dawn, low and steady, spilling over the fields like smoke. The frost hasn't yet melted on the hedgerows. Crows lift from the chimney stacks, startled into a black spiral. Even the goat pauses mid-chew. There's no need to ask what it means. Everyone already knows. Inside the cottage, movement slows to half speed. Ladle pauses mid-stir. It's plague years, especially those that swept through Tudor towns every few decades. The ringing of the bell was the village's way of saying goodbye. Its feathers glint like coal in candlelight. Then it flutters down, its shadow brushing the window frame before disappearing. But she watches it flicker, watches the wax melt into the cracked dish, watches the flame curl toward the sky, as though reaching for something that's no longer there. No fine boxes, no marked graves unless the family could afford it. Sometimes only a shroud in the shape of a prayer whispered into the wind. The broth is gone. The spoon has been picked up, washed, and set aside. The youngest sleeps with a thumb tucked under his chin. Sister hums a lullaby that no one taught her. The cat watches from the windowsill. Some were buried with herbs, some with nothing at all. No formal funerals, no long readings, just tolls. One for each breath, no longer drawn. Some bells rang so often they cracked. How does a sound carry so much weight? He speaks through the crack in the door, his hat in hand, his voice low. A draft curls in behind him and lingers by the floor. Your mother sits on the bench and says nothing. She stares at her hands. She picks at a hangnail. She pulls a thread from her sleeve and ties it in a knot. Then another. She lays the string across her knee like something living. His words are few. The fever came fast. The boy didn't suffer long. He says the priest did what he could. Says the body will be wrapped and buried by sundown. He does not come inside. Later, someone stops by the house. A cousin, or a neighbor, or both. The door is closed gently, and the cousin is gone. Loss was expected, but expectation did not dull its edge. The children eat late. Not because the food was slow, but because no one felt hungry. The broth is watery, the bread dry, the silence deeper than either. The youngest bites without tasting. Sister spoons slowly. A brother scratches at the table. Your father eats everything, as he always does. Not out of hunger, but out of necessity. Fire sputters, but does not go out. One spoon falls. No one moves to pick it up. It lies on the floor until evening, soaking in the dust and stillness. A crow lands on the chimney just before dark, pecks twice at the edge, then stills, head cocked as if listening. Your mother lights a single taper and places it on the sill. She does not say why. She does not say anything. The dead in Tudor villages were often buried quickly, sometimes within hours. Even farewell can be worn too thin to speak. The night deepens. The fire fades to a soft orange cradle. The floor is swept clean. Outside, frost blooms again. Quiet, certain, patient. The candle has burned low, its flame bending in the shape of breath. Perhaps we haven't changed as much as we imagine. Thank you for being here. Sweet dreams.